Jeff Marek is the host of The Sheet, weekdays at noon Pacific time here on the Nation Network, and he joins us typically Fridays. How are you?
I am well. I am looking forward to the weekend hockey action. This has been an interesting 7 days around the NHL. One thing that I was wondering about coming off trade deadline last Friday. I don't know about you guys. And again, I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not going to name names. This is just vibes. This is just feelings. But did this year's trade deadline kind of have a July 1st tampery kind of feel? To anybody? Does anyone else feel that way? Like,
I said that about the Seth Jones
about a lot of players.
Yeah. I said that about the Seth Jones trade because Ekblad had the PD thing, and like that was a little suspicious to me. But.
Whatever do you mean, Jeff Marek?
Yeah, what
you specify here?
Again, I'm dancing on a. This is just this is just vibes. This is just feelings. It just I don't know. It just kind of felt to me much like on July 1st. All of a sudden, these wonderful long-term contract extensions appear just after noon Eastern. This seemed like a lot of people knew about a lot of people's business all at the same time here. I don't know. It just felt that way. That's all. 7 days.
I will say this, though, notwithstanding the Vancouver Canucks, but more of that, please, on trade deadline.
100%.
Like those were meaty trades. The Ottawa Buffalo trade, of course, the Rantanen trade, even the Colorado-Boston trade of the centers, and we totaled it up, Jeff. I think it's something like 13 second-round picks and 8 first-round picks went over the course of like deadline week. Like that was fun.
Yeah. You know what I think? You know what I think? A lot of it is, honestly, I think it is the salary cap is going up, and so now teams feel like they can buy their way out of mistakes in the off season, or they have some room to clean up their salary cap. Flat cap, it's your margin of error is so slim, so you really don't want to make any mistakes. So you're extra cautious and extra conservative. Now everybody's looking at the idea of the cap growing for the next 3 years and saying, you know what, let's just make a mess of the season, whatever, and we'll clean up our cap in the off season, whatever. Let's just it's the old Bobby Clark philosophy. Doesn't matter what we pay, we got the guy, the old Ed Snyder or whatever. Do what it takes, just get the guy, just get the player. It seemed very much like this time around there was that vibe around the NHL. And I'm with you guys. Like more of that, please, every year. Thank you.
So when now 7 days out, especially when you look back at what the Canucks most specifically didn't do, but also did do, because they dipped the toe early in the week and trade Carson Soucy for a third. You're thinking, okay, they're going to extract some assets for their surplus here. But then make it sound like we're going to hold tight because we think we got a chance, but then they don't add even though they think they have a chance, and now ultimately they've got defensive injuries where Carson Soucy would come in handy. Like it feels like they were really caught in between thoughts, and now they're really caught in between thoughts.
Players blocking shots, players getting elbows in the head, and all of a sudden, now where's that Soucy guy? Is he still around? We might want to stick him in the lineup here for the game against the Hawks on Saturday. We've talked about this the last couple of weeks. I don't think this is an organization that's looking to do anything other than to improve and get into the playoffs and try to knock some billiard balls around, and even more so look around the division. Look around. I mean, we're all making a big deal about the Calgary Flames, and there's still no guarantees there. Nice win, by the way, the other night by the Vancouver Canucks of the Calgary Flames, but it's really hard. Here's an obvious statement. It's really hard to win the Stanley Cup, and it's really hard to get close to winning the Stanley Cup. 82 games is awful. 82 games is a grind, and then try to win 16 more when the puck is heavier and all the hits are for keeps. I mean, that's a real challenge. But I think if you're the Vancouver Canucks, you look around again, like we talked about last week. Sure, Calgary, sure, Utah, sure, St. Louis, but you look around and say, why not us? Why don't we have a shot? And St. Louis is feeling the same way, and Utah is feeling the same way, and Calgary are feeling the same way. So why take that step back at all if you're Vancouver?
So that brings us to our Surrey Mitsubishi poll question. Do you believe in just get in and anything can happen in the Stanley Cup playoffs?
I don't know about anything, right? You get in and essentially you bought a lottery ticket, and it's only a matter of your odds at that point, health, having an easy series. If you're going to do anything along the way, you do need a 4-gamer. It's a grind when everything is a seven game series. I know we all point to the St. Louis Blues and say, look, it can happen. They had that miracle season where everybody was going to be waived and traded and fired, etc. And they switched out coaches and they called up the AHL goaltender. And instead of waiving Jay Bouwmeester, they kept him. Instead of sending Pat Maroon down to the American League, they kept him. And Doug Armstrong just sort of sat on his hands, and everything ended up working out just fine. It's hard. I don't know that if you get in, anything can happen. It's rare for that anything, which we all assume to be the Stanley Cup. If you get in, you can do something. But the way that the playoffs are structured, coming off of an 82-game season, this is why the Cinderella story doesn't happen in the Stanley Cup final. This is why it doesn't happen. It's just too damn hard. I know Vegas is a great one. We mentioned St. Louis, but this is increasingly, more rare and rare. So it's put it this way, it's hard. Can anything happen? Yes, because just getting in is a lottery ticket. But I think that's what Vancouver wants. Like, they just want to get in and see what happens.
I hear teams declare we want to win the Stanley Cup this year. I hear teams that are struggling that say, okay, we want to make the playoffs this year. We heard the Canucks say this 2 years ago. Yeah. I don't hear a lot of teams be honest and say, it'd be nice to make it to the second round. But deep down, they probably believe that, don't they? I mean, it is a useful tool to get more playoff experience. And if the Canucks don't win the Stanley Cup this year, and they probably won't, it's still useful for a team to enter into a series and try to win a series. Isn't that true?
More so with teams with a lot of young players, and that's why outside of the obvious, where our hearts are all broken about the Gaudreau family this year, we're all cheering for Columbus. On the one hand, we're all cheering for Columbus for that very reason, and Calgary as well. But we're also saying, like, you know what, this would be great for all these young players. Like, that's not just this experience of the playoffs, but having a meaningful 82-game season. I mean, ask these guys, like, there's nothing worse than being out of the playoffs by Christmas and then everything is an empty calorie game. Like, every game's a potato chip. It doesn't matter. I know you got to be professional and show up. Like, just go through what Seth Jones just went through with the Chicago Blackhawks. I mean, how many empty calorie games did Seth Jones have to play before he finally got his way out of Chicago and can now finally play some meaningful games? Again, like, I know you have to be a professional, etc., but everyone's a human being here, and that's hard, man. Like, that's really, really difficult. But is there value in it? Yeah, absolutely. For more specifically for young teams, just so they know what a real 82-game season feels like. The playoffs are the playoffs, but that 82 games, here's what a real season feels like, not just we're bowing out before Christmas and we'll see you next year at training camp.
Before we leave deadline, you had a terrific interview with Carolina Hurricanes general manager Eric Tulsky this week.
Yeah, he was good.
He was. He's a smart guy, and good on him for coming on your show and being as forthright as he was. Do you believe there was a last-minute Besser to Carolina deal that the Hurricanes couldn't pivot to because of how long the Rantanen thing was going?
I'm not so sure. I'm sure that there were things that Carolina wanted to do, but weren't able to because so much of that day was revolving around Mikko Rantanen. It wouldn't surprise me. Let me put it to you that way, Matt. But I haven't heard that specifically. But I wouldn't be shocked if you said, this is what went down. But a lot of that day was like, I mean, so much of the week for Eric Tulsky just revolved around Mikko Rantanen and getting that deal done. One of the things that Tulsky mentioned was not that he was like throwing his head coach under the bus, but like it wasn't as if the way that Rod Brindamore kind of presented it is he showed up in Raleigh and said, "There's only 4 teams are going to play for it, and you're not one of them." And that's not exactly how it went. He didn't say that it's only 4 teams are going to play for. That conversation didn't happen till a week out of trade deadline. That it was obvious that it wasn't going to happen with the Hurricanes and Mikko Rantanen, and that's when you start to gauge the interest, gauge what you're going to get back from the various teams, and then start to whittle down and put your best possible deal together. But no, it's a long-winded answer, I know, Matt, but it wouldn't surprise me. No, I just haven't heard that specifically.
They had an overture on Elias Patterson last year before he signed. We had heard them connected to Patterson earlier this year. I had a smart person tell me this week, I think they're going to be interested in Patterson this summer as well, that he's an analytical Carolina Hurricanes profile of player, at least what the front office is looking for.
And a quiet market. And a quiet market.
I think almost the perfect market.
If there's one, like, honestly, like, close your eyes and imagine, okay, who's the one player in the NHL that needs to be surrounded by silence for a long time? It's Elias Patterson. Right? Not everything needs to be a headline. Doesn't need to wake up to that every day. Now, mind you, he's played much better the last few games too. You guys know that a lot better than I do. But it does seem like a hand to glove fit. Elias Patterson in Carolina, not an easy deal to do, obviously, with the contract and what the compensation is, but he does sort of fit the profile. I do believe of what Carolina is trying to do.
Although funny, he's effortlessly done media here the last week, and looked happy enough to do it because he's playing better. And he looked like a chick trying to escape the egg for the first 4 months of the season, but he may have breached the shell at this point. Are you believing what you're seeing?
I want to put it this way. I want to believe it because I don't want to see. That's a great analogy, by the way. Like, bravo for you. Like, take the rest of the week off, sir.
Honestly, I've been sitting here for 13 years, Jeff. That one might make it to the podium. His own personal top three.
Maddie, and they say this country has no poets. Please, this country has no poets.
Hey, English Lit major, UBC. There you go.
English philosophy, University of Guelph, right here. Blake and I will get along famously.
Renaissance men.
But he didn't know that Hans Christian Andersen wrote The Emperor's New Clothes yesterday, so he wasn't that good a student.
It was a long time ago. Many brain cells in between then and now. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, Elias Patterson.
Belief in him, yes.
I put it this way. I don't know. I mean, I don't think really any of us do. I just know that I really want this to be true because I don't want to see anyone continue to go through what Elias Patterson is going through. Again, like, I don't cheer for teams. I cheer for people. I want this guy to come out the other end of this. I can only imagine how much it feels like living in your own head the way that Elias Patterson has over how many years now. So is it real? I don't know, but I really want it to be real. How about that? I'm hoping it's real.
It was secondhand cringe. It was secondhand discomfort watching him have to go through all of this, and in December he just reverted to like flat out lying just to get away from everything.
To get away from it all.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what's on my list here again? Oh yes.
You know what? By the way, can I mention one thing about Eric Tulsky here? Like when you look at, I was making this point the other day to someone. I might have been on the show. When you look at all the things that Eric Tulsky is qualified to do, and you look at like all the patents that he holds, like there's a line in the slap shot. Look at Ned. He doesn't need hockey. Look at Eric. He doesn't need hockey. He does this because it's fun. It's a challenge. He likes it. I think he looks at I think he looks at hockey games or roster constructions like it's a puzzle. It's like a Rubik's Cube that continually fights back. And I think that challenge excites him. But if it was all over for Eric Tulsky tomorrow, I don't think he'd be one of those guys that needs to get back in the game.
Wins and losses are fun, right? Analytics are analytics, and you can find puzzles everywhere else in life, but you don't get wins and losses everywhere else in life, well, and there's a rush in that.
The thing is, I think that's why, in a lot of ways, he's unlike any other general manager that we see in the NHL. He could turn and leave and walk away from hockey tomorrow. When you look around the NHL, how many people can you honestly say that guy could walk away from hockey?
Financially, yes, but
there's some financially, absolutely. But you know what I'm getting at, right? Like, there's some people like this. This is what I do. I've only known this since I was 14 years old, shooting frozen cow patties off the side of a barn in Swift Current. Like, this is all that I do. It's hockey, right? Eric can go and do a lot of different things, and I think that's why it makes him a unique manager in that he has like this sort of the spirit of entrepreneurialism in that he says, I'm going to take 10 swings. And if I get on base 6 times, I'm going to Cooperstown. I don't think he sweats one loss. I think he looks at it this way. He very much has a vibe like either Carolina's going to win a lot of games and people are going to like him, or they're going to lose a lot of games and they're not going to like him. Everything in between is noise. That's really what every time I talk to Tulsky, that's the takeaway that I have. He just looks at everything else is noise. We're either winning or we're losing. Everything else is noise.
But Jeff, he also has the educational background that he can go out and do other things, whereas that has not always been the case with hockey general managers who, make their way up through hockey scouting and don't really have career options beyond that. So yeah, that makes a ton of sense to me. Tocchet has an option here on his contract. The Canucks have an option on Tocchet. What do you think? I mean, it's been a season, going through hell for Tocchet. Everybody knows that. What coach would sign up for what he
looks a little worn too.
And he has just started this week, to his infinite credit, for the first time in like 2 years, to start to get a little impatient and push back in that in public forums. What's your sense on where Tocchet is next year?
The Rick Tocchet, I always think about Rick Tocchet as a player initially. And this was a guy that overcame a lot of obstacles to get to his position in the game and be successful internationally and in the NHL and cups, etc., and do all the things that he did. And he did everything the hard way. Like, he was a guy, there's the old saying, to be successful, you take the stairs. There's no elevator. Like, Rick Tocchet took the stairs. There's no elevator for Rick Tocchet. For some guys there are. But not for Rick Tocchet. And that's why whenever I think about this or have a conversation about it, I always say to myself, Rick Tocchet's had the hard way every single time, and he's never quit. And he's never said, this is too damn hard. Rick Tocchet's never said, oh, I've had enough. Like, put it this way, I would be surprised if Rick Tocchet said, I'm not up for this. Because that's not the Rick Tocchet. Again, maybe I'm just putting too much into the player that I saw, but I do believe that you carry that ethic along with you in your future career. For Rick's case, obviously, it's coaching. The guy that I watched play hockey, and we all watched hockey, never quit and fought for every inch. All those cliches. That's why I have a hard time wrapping my head around the idea that Rick Tocchet would say, "This is too hard. I don't want to do this." That's not the Rick Tocchet that I know. I'm not sure if you guys feel differently, but that would surprise me.
That's the theory.
That to me is not Rick Tocchet.
That's a great answer.
I've got a pet project to bounce off of you.
Okay.
Let's do the goaltending thing.
Okay, sure.
Because that dovetails with the Canucks a little more readily.
Okay.
So Aiden Hill signs. The list of UFA goaltenders this summer is not glorious. Freddie Anderson, Samsonov, Georgiev, and some backups. Who's looking? And does that give Thatcher Demko some decent trade value with 1 year left at $5 million on his deal?
I wonder. And again, this is not a report. This is just me wondering, because I've wondered the same thing you guys have. I wonder if there's a fit in Los Angeles for Thatcher Demko. That would
probably be his number one market to go to if he had to leave Vancouver.
Home,
I would guess.
Right?
Yeah,
That's the one. That's the one that's the one that stands out that I do wonder about. You're right. Like, there are a lot of goalies that are available. I've always liked Jake Allen. I'll tell you, and he looked great again last night against the New Jersey Devils. But what I'm always interested in is the one that, nobody really saw coming, the one that had, a great American Hockey League career, and it just maybe took a little bit longer because that's what happens with goaltenders, and then pops for someone in the NHL. I mean, that story is long and well told. I wonder about someone like Hunter Shepard. I really do. In the Washington Capitals organization, like, they've got their two guys locked up now, for the next, minimum 3 years. But that's one guy that if I'm an NHL team and I'm looking around and I'm saying, you know what? I know what I'm getting in Samsonov. I know what I'm getting in Frederik Andersen. I know what I'm getting in Jake Allen. I want to roll the dice here. I wonder if Hunter Shepard could be that next guy. I don't know. 29 years old. There are times in the American Hockey League where he's been fantastic. There have been other times where, pedestrian. But I wonder if he could be that next one. I really do.
Yeah, he's won 2 Calder Cups down there with the Hershey Bears, posting sublime numbers. Not quite as good this year, and he's got a few NHL games on his resume.
You know who's had a good year is Mikey
Demko,
Mikey DiPietro.
Yes, he has. Yeah, we noted that a couple weeks ago. Thatcher Demko, for those who don't know, a former Los Angeles Junior King, a former San Diego Junior Gull. His father lives down in the San Diego area.
You're getting that soap and warm water feeling about Demko, Los Angeles.
Okay, how about trading for Hunter Shepard right now so that they can get to Thatcher Demko's return? How about that?
Okay, pet project time with Blake Price. Okay, and Jeff, just so you know, this isn't a report. This is just him doing the Jeff Marek musing, that emoji.
Yeah.
Again, I have been
scratching his chinny chin.
I've been ahead of the game here in my worry on behalf of the Canucks. Where do they find their next center? I think I've asked you this already. So, because the UFA class not great. I mean, I don't think John Tavares fits where they're trying to go, or anybody else for that matter. And outside of the most creative trades possible, the other option is an offer sheet. And we saw 2 last year that were successful. And the offer sheet class is a little bit more interesting. The Canucks would need to trade to get to the interesting...
Teams have more cap space, right?
To get to the interesting offer number, the Canucks need to go to Montreal and get their 3rd-round pick back. That shouldn't be that difficult, really. You'd have to do a pick swap. You'd have to probably flip a second their way or something like that. But you have to get your 3rd-round pick back.
Yep.
But then should the Canucks be aggressive and try to find somebody's second-line center that they can make their 1B center? And a resurgent Elias Patterson maybe makes that more imperative, because then you're a lot closer to contending again if Patterson is truly back. Again, I go to a guy like Marco Rossi, who Bill Guerin may or may not have a long-term fit for because of his size. Bill Guerin likes the big rough and tumble guys. Yeah. That's just a name I'm going to peel off the top of my head. But if you offer him $9 million a year, does he start to grow into that contract pretty quickly?
I'm biased because I love Marco Rossi. Again, I'll betray my bias. Covered him in junior hockey. Love the skill. Love the work ethic. Like, this guy works like a fiend. Like, honestly, he's one of my favorite players.
AFP's got him at $6 million a year for his next contract coming off his ELC. Yeah. But if you give him $9 million,
well, no, you have
do the Wild have to walk away?
Yeah. You have to. I mean, it'll be a tough one for Bill Guerin here for it, because now all of a sudden, like, they don't have the albatross. Your Samuel Taylor Coleridge reference there for you, Mr. Price. They don't have the albatross anymore around the neck. I'll tell you. You know what really scared managers last year was the St. Louis offer sheets. Yeah. Like, when you look at, like, one of the reasons why, like, let me go back to Tulsky here for a second. One of the reasons why Jake Gensel ended up leaving Carolina is they were too preoccupied in making sure that they didn't fall victim to an offer sheet. And so they spent a lot of time making sure that they weren't going to get offer sheeted. And then when St. Louis did what they did, now all of a sudden, like, this is Doug Armstrong doing this. Like, this isn't just a war.
Old school guy.
Like, this isn't just a war between a couple of owners in Carolina and Montreal. Like, this is like, whoa, Doug Armstrong did this. And honestly, it sent a chill through managers in the NHL. And now I don't know that, as much as I want to say, like, there's going to be the summer of offer sheets, going to be flying all over the place.
But it's not taboo anymore, clearly.
I don't, it's not taboo. It never really should have ever been taboo. Right. I think that Doug Armstrong really opened a door here, and I think teams are more scared of it than before, and they insulate and protect themselves so they don't get offer sheeted. But there is one player out there that I really do wonder about when it comes to offer sheets. Devin Levi.
Oh, really?
Why him?
I don't know that anyone in that organization is too thrilled to be there right now. And I don't know how this thing is going to turn around and how quickly it's going to turn around. Like, I just talked about Hunter Shepard a second ago with the Hershey Bears, and Devin Levi. Like, we all know how good this guy can be. And I think as a Canadian hockey fan, I'm saying to myself, I really hope he gets to that place where he can be that goalie we think that he can always be.
Yeah.
I really do wonder if he would be, because I mean, it takes two. Like you can submit an offer sheet to a player. Player doesn't have to sign it.
No, exactly.
Right. So I really do wonder if all of a sudden someone submits an offer sheet to Devin Levi. Hey, listen, maybe even again, this is just chin scratch. Maybe even Montreal submits an offer sheet to Devin Levi.
So people still believe in him, Jeff. It's 39 NHL games with the 329 goals against and an 894 GAA. So people still believe in him. They just attribute this to Buffalo being Buffalo, and his
AHL numbers are spectacular.
He's been buffaloed.
Right, put it this way: Rochester might win the Calder Cup this year. Rochester is outstanding. Laval's great. Hershey's great again. Rochester is right there. Like, that coaching staff has done a great job. Those players have been awesome. Noah Ostland's probably a player we should talk a lot more about. There are actually some good players still coming for the Buffalo Sabres. But I think everybody looks at just like we looked at Dylan Cousins, and look, he's got a new lease on life and he's going to shoot the lights out in Florida. Look at Sam Reinhart, a new lease on life. Brandon Montour, a new lease on life. Like, this story has been well told. And I think a lot of people look at the Buffalo Sabres and say, hang on, grain of salt with all the numbers we're seeing there, because it's been a miserable place to play and everybody's playing one level higher than they should. So grain of salt with all of it.
All right. We'll look for that. We're fresh out of time. Thank you for yours. Very quickly, because I love to give you a little something at the end.
Okay, yeah.
We had the Montreal Canadiens here in town this week. Mm-hmm. How many Montreal Canadiens goaltenders have won the Hart Trophy?
I know one for sure. I'm assuming another one.
2.
Yeah, I'll just say 2. Theodore and who? Dryden?
Jeff, who were the 2 you were thinking of, Jeff?
Did Jacques Plante not win it?
Jacques Plante won it. Jose Theodore won it.
Jose Theodore won it, yeah.
Dryden, no.
Are we forgetting
Patrick Waugh won?
Pride of Anaheim Lake, British Columbia?
Carey Price won.
Carey Price 3, of course, yes.
That's what makes it a great question. You think Waugh, you think we're like all the Canadians goaltenders. 7 all time, 3 of the Montreal Canadiens. Hasek the only to win multiple.
Let me throw another Montreal one out at you here that I like to mention and draw the ire of everybody outside of Montreal Canadiens fans. You know, the ire that I have for the term original 6. I like to refer to it, by the way, as solvent 6. These are the solvent 6 teams. But what I always like
through the early days.
What I always like to remind people of, there is no original 6. There is original 1, the Montreal Canadiens. Mm-hmm. Everybody else is an expansion team.
Oh boy, how about that? Yeah. Yeah, and Earl Zuckerman and all the hockey historians who can take you back.
Right on, Marek. Yeah, Earl
when the sport when the sport was founded, established in that city. Okay, thanks for this. Have a great week. Until next Friday.
Thanks, boys. Talk in a week.